Eric Dungey for his weekly Friday appearance. Eric, man, you've had a lot go on since we last talked 2 weeks ago. Neck surgery last week. First off, how you doing? How does that go? I can't imagine that's the most pleasant experience in life.
It wasn't, as you see. I'm, got the recovery patch on now. They went in actually through the front of my neck. Pretty cool surgery. Had a great surgeon. I'm just happy that I got it fixed. Got 2 new discs in there. That's been bothering me for about 5 or 6 years, believe it or not, since Xavier Thomas hit me at Clemson on that one hit. I thought it was whiplash. Turned out he actually hit 2 discs out of place. I've been playing ever since. So.
Okay, was that okay? Yeah, that was literally like the last. Yeah, I'm remembering that the last drive of the 2018 game down there. Yeah, he was very unblocked on that play. He got you good. So that was that's that. Which so I'm glad you're doing well. I imagine you can't do much here for the next little bit if you're recovering from something like that.
Yeah, you know what? That's the hardest part. I think just not being able to do anything, just sitting down. They said you can't lift more than 5 to 10 pounds for 4 weeks, technically 6. But I'm like, hey, I got about 4 weeks in me, and then I'm going to go a little crazy. But it's been going well. My wife's been obviously a great stay-at-home nurse for me, taking care of me, and I'm just ready to get after the physical therapy. But having a Syracuse football and college football to watch on the weekends has been getting me through it, unless it's going to be this weekend on the bye. But
yeah, no Cuse this weekend. I'm sure you've never been the best at sitting still, Eric. So hopefully you make it through the next month before you can attack this recovery, and I'm sure you'll be good to go for the long term. And this ties in a little bit. That's not a head thing, but the neck is right there to the hit Tua took last night. You certainly know head injuries a little bit from your time at Syracuse. Mm-hmm. From what you went through, when you see a hit like that and you know the recent parts of his history, what goes through your mind when you see a play like that?
I mean, I watched that live, and it's just the repetitive hits that he's taken in a 3-year or 2-year span. And I mean, every one, it's worse and worse. So at this point, I mean, the kid, he does have a family, and I love what Coach McDaniel said. I mean, you're the quarterback for your family, and there's a life after football, and I'm just hoping that he's thinking about that. Even though I did have concussions in college, none of them compared to the hits that he has taken in his just 3 years in the NFL, and that could be however many in high school and college that he took as well. And it looks like each one's just getting worse and worse. And you got to just think about the kid's future and the kid's family. And I just hope that he's doing okay and that he's able to find some clarity. But he's a phenomenal football player. But like I said, there's a life after football. And, he's set himself up well, him and his family well, with all the money that he's made through the NFL and the endorsements. So just making sure that he's taking care of himself and his family.
Eric, it was, go figure how time flies. It was 9 years ago yesterday was the hit you took against Central Michigan in the Dome, which is still to this day the dirtiest hit I've ever seen in person. It's amazing, though, right? Like, obviously, that was a vicious hit, and you get wiped out on it. It's amazing, though, how much more we know about this stuff, right, in 9 years. How different is it for you to observe stuff like this with Tua today, with all the concussion information than we know, than when you were going through it at the time a decade ago?
Oh, for sure. And I'm now in the medical device, or the medical industry, and I do medical device, and it's just crazy. Your brain it's so vital to everything that you're doing, and it is just a muscle, and the repetitive damage that you can have over time, it can lead to drastic changes later down the road as well. And it's one of those things, playing, you always thought you were being a tough guy. Oh, I got my bell wrong, got my this and that. I'll play through it, but it is something you have to take seriously. And again, I'm very fortunate that my concussions, they were serious, but at the end of the day, they were spaced out over time. I had, the correct athletic trainer, Denny Kellington and Tim Pike. They did a great job to make sure that I wasn't getting back on the field too quick, that I was taking those steps to make sure I was healthy enough to get back on the field and not rushing into it. And again, I'm just very thankful, even after football, or I was done at Syracuse, I never took a hit basically for 3 years during my span with the NFL and the XFL. And I think everything happens for a reason. And again, life was going to change eventually once I stopped playing. For me, it was a hard transition because obviously football is what I've known ever since I was a kid. But then you start to realize there is a whole nother chapter to life. And I'm fortunate that football still plays a role in my life where I'm able to talk to you about Syracuse, and I'm able to watch it and see it at a different level. And I had all those memories that playing, and I still think I could play today after I get my neck surgery fixed up here. But it's just one of those things. You got to make sure you're looking after your long-term health, and there's a lot of life to live.
Tua's obviously, it feels like this, depending on what he does here, like people are calling for him to retire. We don't know what he's going to do. It's still way too early to know the answers to something like that. But like if he were to retire here, right, that would be the most landmark thing that's ever happened, it would feel like, in sports and head injuries and all of that. What do you think, like a decision like this, it feels like it could affect how people like understand this, right? If he chooses to step away.
And I think Teddy Bridgewater had kind of a similar instance with that. I mean, he retired relatively young for a quarterback, and he had a really bad head injury. And it was the same thing. He said, "I don't want my kids to remember me laying down on the field. I want to be there present with my kids in the future." So he was able to make that, and it's a grown man decision. It's a very hard decision, especially for guys like Tua, guys like who they've known football, and that's their whole identity. But there's other things out there, whether it be broadcasting, whether it be doing something in the field. And I'm not saying Tua should retire. I'm not a medical doctor, and I don't have that degree of knowledge for that. But just based off of the injuries that he's taken, I mean, they look worse and worse. And I mean, the hit he took, it was bad, but at the same time, it didn't look, it wasn't like straight head to head. And that's why it's just, if it's getting worse and worse after each hit he's taking, you got to think about the future for him. But again, he's going to make a decision, hopefully, that is going to be best for him and his family. And I know that his coach supports him in whatever he's going to say. So it's cool to see that McDaniels was in his corner.
Yeah, he's a fun guy to root for, and Mike McDaniels, he's one of my favorites out there to watch. But that's the thing, Eric. Like the hit wasn't dirty at all. Go figure, it was Damar Hamlin. It was just a normal football play, and then that all happened. So we got Eric Dungey with us. All right, let's talk about the football on the field here, Eric. We haven't gotten a chance to chat since the Orange season has started here. You've watched Kyle McCord play for these two games. My goodness, he is slinging it around. What's your early reactions to the Orange quarterback?
He's impressive. I think we were speaking earlier, and I said, Kyle McCord doesn't have to have a Heisman season. And, it's funny. I saw the Heisman candidates that came out this week for the leaders, and he's in there. He is just playing at such a high level. He's taking care of the ball. He's doing exactly what he's supposed to be doing. And that just speaks volumes of himself and also Coach Brown and his faith in him. It's really cool to have a relationship that him and Coach Brown have. I mean, you could tell Coach Brown believes in him. This is my guy, and he's going to go to battle for him. And as a quarterback, to have your coach in your corner, that's all you need for that confidence. It's like playing against those kids in high school, and their dads were the basketball coach. They got the greenest light ever, and that's just the confidence that you're going to go through. And they're usually the best shooter because you're just playing free, you're playing loose, and Kyle, he's got all the confidence in the world that his coach is supporting him. And at the same time, you got guys like Trevor Pena who are stepping up. Trevor had, unfortunately some injuries, and he's just blown it out of the water this year, been a very reliable receiver for Kyle. And then obviously Aronde is going to do what he does and makes those impressive catches across the middle, strong hands, making those plays, getting the touchdowns. But we haven't even called the likes of Amari Hatcher and some of these other receivers that we know can make plays, and they have a lot of tools in their tool belt that we haven't really even seen at full blast yet. So, I think he's 735 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, and only 1 interception. He is cooking at a high level. Defensively, they're getting better. I think we talked about the gaps in the run game. They held Georgia Tech to about 125, 122 yards. So they're improving. This team, and I was talking with Gomez this morning, this team has such a viable option and chance to get to 11-1, 12-0 even. You're looking at the schedule. In the past, Syracuse has always had such a tough schedule. The LSU, the Notre Dame offseason or out of conference games. This season, it's lining up. Hey, we can really make a run at double-digit wins, and not only double-digit wins, but maybe a high-seeding playoff ranking. And you hate to look ahead, but it's hard not to when there's this much hype. The hype is living up to what it's been. So really exciting times for Syracuse, and I think they're just doing a really, really great job. And this is all attributed to Coach Brown and the success that he's really rolled in.
Eric, this is the first year, and I get FSU's, they clearly look down through 2 weeks, but to go into the season knowing you don't have Clemson and Florida State on the schedule, literally the first time ever in the ACC. I go back to 2018, right? Like you mentioned that Clemson game earlier. Like, okay, you guys lost that game by 1 possession, and it basically eliminated any chance you had of winning the league because there was no way to get back ahead of Clemson in divisions. It just feels like, no divisions, 12 teams in the playoffs. Whether it happens or not for Syracuse, there have to be so many teams, right, thinking, hey, we got a chance in a way they've never gotten to think before.
Oh, definitely. Well, Texas State kind of blew their opportunity last night, but even the group of five, like the UCF, the self-proclaimed 2017 national champions, now it's, hey, now you can put your money where your mouth is with this 12 teams. And I think that's the way it should be. And, you have the Alabamas, the Clemsons, the teams that have dominated for so long. And, obviously when you're so dominant and there's only the two teams or I guess four teams that can technically make it to the national championship and have those rights, now you open it up and you have this open competition, and now NIL is bringing in all this money for these players to go and make a name for themselves at these different locations. But I think opening up for those 12 teams, it's better for the entire game. It breeds competition, and that's what we want. That's what fans want. And it's going to lead to the most success. And it also leads to a better product, which the NCAA, regardless of what they say, they're an entertainment product. They're trying to make the most revenue they can, and this is the best way to do so.
Absolutely. And hey, a lot of teams have hope and thoughts and dreams now that they weren't plausible before. And now, whether they happen or not, like, it's going to happen to somebody this year. We'll see if it's Syracuse or not, as we got Eric Dungey with us, his weekly Friday visit. Well, what have you made of the motivational tactics of Fran Brown through 2 weeks? We saw last week, like, he turned it into he very quickly turned it into an us versus them, and what is Georgia Tech going on? How fun is that, I guess, when a head coach finds those things to latch onto that you can use as a driver throughout the week?
I'll tell you one thing. I would have loved playing for Coach Brown, and just the mantra that he has. That was kind of our mantra senior year. It was us against them. And, we had a different saying that I would break it down to. Can't say it over the radio here, but that's really the mindset you got to have. It is a dogfight. Football, it is a physical, violent game. You are not trying to hurt anybody, but at the same time, you are trying to inflict, fear into the opponent. And in order to win the game, you have to be physically, mentally stronger and tougher than them. So you got to have like a gladiator mindset. And I absolutely love that movie. And that's kind of how it felt going out there. You are the man in the arena. You have to make sure that you're performing. And you're understanding your body is going to go through it. But as long as you have that confidence in each other, and you're really going to war with your brothers out there. And that's how Coach Brown is really instilling the identity of this program with that, and you've seen the success that correlates with it. So he's saying, hey, you want to come to Syracuse? We're not the joke of the ACC anymore. We're a top contender, and if you want to put your name on the map, come here. And I think it's stuck with the players, it's stuck with the fans, and it's sticking with the alumni. So it's really, again, really, really cool to see.
All right, well, it's been fun to watch through 2 weeks. We'll figure out again next week. Well, I'll have to text you to figure out a day to talk next week, because we'll be in the game is on Friday night. So I will text you. We will figure that Eric out. But we'll talk again sometime next week. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll talk before Stanford gets going next Friday night.
Sounds good. Thanks, Brian. You enjoy